Hello everybody and welcome to my session today talking about how to write a conclusion for your project. By the end of the session today, you'll be able to write your own conclusion for your project or thesis or studies and research. I'll start sharing my folder, which is here. As a quick reminder to our viewers, I'm doing a project on the topic of classroom attention. So far, I've finished most of the sections for my study. I've done the introduction, I've done some definitions, and I've done some theory. I talked about methodology, and I also reported the results and discussions. Now I'm going to do the final part, which is the conclusion for my project. Now, when you want to start talking about or preparing for your conclusion, there are things you need to start thinking about or preparing before you start writing. The first thing is, I would like you to go to your introduction, and I want you to copy your research question, and I want you to go and copy and paste it in your conclusion at the very, very first line. So I go to the first line here, and I paste my question. Now, why is it important to start putting the question right from the beginning? It is important because a major part of the conclusion will be, how do you plan to answer this question? Like, you want to state the answer to the question, to the research question, in a very clear way at the conclusion. The second technique that you need to start thinking about and preparing when you're preparing for your conclusion is, I always advise and recommend that you need to read your discussion and results and discussion. Like, read it again. Maybe you might want to read it more than once. Read it, read it, read it, read it, read it, read it, and then you'll need this because what you're reading, you need to summarize, because what you summarize is going to be the answer to this question. Okay? All right, now when we talk about conclusions, there are basic components to the conclusion. The first one is summary of key findings. It's still recording, I think so. Okay, and so this is the first component, of course, summary of key findings, focusing on the research question. The second component is recommendations. Like, what kind of recommendations does this study offer? After the recommendations, you also need to think about limitations and challenges. Okay. And you've seen on my draft that I started here jotting down some ideas. Of course, I'll be using these with the summary to develop some kind of argument or discussion. I'll keep them here. Okay, I'll also review them quickly. Let me see what I wrote earlier. You don't really need sophisticated material to get student attention. Attention and engagement come together. If a teacher plans to get better attention, she's advised to think of activities and practices that engage the students. Teacher performance is key. Rapid attention is hard nowadays, and this implies more effort required from the teachers in order to get that. If a teacher is not involved and passionate, it affects students. Even the students-related factors, the role of the teacher come up as a paramount issue in the improving student attention. Policies also support the teachers in achieving the goals. Teacher's role is also evident in the context as blah, blah, blah. Okay, let me see if I'm ready to start writing my conclusion. Before starting with the conclusion, I want to write, you know, I always like to write like an introductory part for every section I write. So this study investigated issues related to student attention, and this was done through an empirical investigation conducted at primary, I don't remember actually what school I was using as an example for this study. Let's say a primary school in the US. Of course, you see, I'm doing lots of terrible. Of course, it's not imperial; it's empirical. Empirical research conducted primary. So whenever I type, I make lots of terrible typing mistakes. I don't stop at each because I want to keep flow of the sentence and the way it's going. So I go back later usually for these typos. So this study investigated issues related to student attention, and this was done through an empirical investigation conducted at a primary school in the US. The study started by an introductory section which shed light on the Omani context and focusing on education and current challenges. The study was underpinned by the research question about factors in student attention. The study also reviewed some of the current literature on the topic, and a theoretical model was used. The study also discussed methodological aspects of the study. Results were also discussed in relation to the topic and the research question. So you see what I'm doing here is like I'm making an introductory part for my my conclusion. Now I need a thesis statement for that part. I will say this concluding section. This concluding section. What does it do? Okay, I tell you what it does. This conclusion section provides a brief, provides a summary of key findings. It also discusses presents some relevant recommendations and discusses some of the study limitations and challenges. Okay, so now I have my introductory part for the conclusion section. I think I'll delete this now because I already mentioned it somewhere here, I believe. Okay. Or maybe I can keep it, I'll delete it later, so I'll highlight it in order to be clearer for me. Now I need to start for my section about summary of key findings. Guys, before I forget as well, I might have to divide this section into two parts in order to make the video file not as big, in order to be able for me to upload to the system view later. Okay. In relation to the research or the study results and findings. The study, in relation to the study findings, it was highlighted that there are three factors affecting, or a group of factors. There are three groups of factors affecting student attention. The first group was highlighted to be related to the teacher. A number of issues were discussed. Do you notice, guys, that I'm using the simple past now because I'm talking about something that I've already done earlier in earlier sections. So a number of issues were discussed in this section, and the most significant issue was, let me try to remember. See, that's why, guys, I was saying, like, you need to read your discussion carefully before you start writing. So I'm trying to remember what were the factors. So there were games, pair work, group work, peer review, role play, problem solving. And these were the techniques among the activities. So that's the seventh factor. No, I don't want the seventh factor. I want all of the factors. So the analysis of the data, all of the sessions observed were. So from what I wrote, what was the most important issue? Okay, is it the warm-up? Is it the storytelling? Is it the signals used? Of course, the results will tell me this. It's not that I'm deciding now. The data analysis will tell me. Okay, as far as I remember, it was the signals. Okay. And I also need to see the comments that I made earlier. Okay, so a number of issues. The most significant was, let's say, materials used in the class. The results highlighted the importance and relevance of using engaging material, as this would help a teacher maintaining students' attention during session. The second most important issue was storytelling, and it was found that personal stories were among the was an important aspect as it makes the material more related to the learners. Other issues or factors or let me see the word I used here, other issues related to teachers and student attention were those of signals and you see, guys, what I'm doing here is like I'm making the mistake myself that I did not really read my results before I started writing. Maybe I should stop then read it. Second practice performed by the teacher effect was storytelling. We talked about storytelling, teacher movement, and material, feedback. Okay, so I'll go down here and I'll write that again. So other issues related to teacher and students attention were those attention that were evident in the study were those of signals, teacher movement, feedback, and material. I will add something actually here in relation to the study results and findings in light of the research question of what factors affect the student attention. It was highlighted there are three groups of factors. Maybe here I can delete this. Okay. The second group factors affecting student attention were related to the student. Again, I'll go here and see what I wrote. I made the mistake that I did not see what I wrote. Student-related factors, having presented and discussed the result, blah, 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 the analysis from the data, interviewed, blah, blah, blah. The first of these was as volunteer discussion and keeping eye contact. So let's say eye contact. All three participants stressed. So all of my participants stressed about this important. So in this case, I think this is the most important factor. And highlighted the role of teacher responsibility on this. Participant one said this, participant said that, participant three said that. Maybe I can also highlight something related to the teacher's role, which I'm talking also about down in my draft ideas that I wrote. The second sub-theme was student sleepiness and tardiness, tiredness during the session. So students tiredness. So, and also here, like you see, the teachers reported very few cases. So maybe this is not a very much important issue. The third sub-theme was using digital devices. Again, teacher said no devices used. Of course, the reference here is for the mobile phone. They don't use the mobile phone in the class. They might go off with a laptop or the tablet. So the next sub-theme was teacher interaction. Again, two of the teachers believed this. From this code, the fifth sub-theme was student distracting other students. None of the participants reported distraction. As I mentioned, the sixth theme was student working in groups and pairs. Opinions about the significance of attention were consistent among all participants. So this is another opinion, important one. What is it? Students working in groups. So work in groups is important. So eye contact and working in groups, these are the most important two factors. The seventh is students' movement in class. Opinions were diverse. So maybe this is not a very important one. The final sub-theme, all the participants mentioned that not having a problem with this since tardiness as well. Distracting and tardiness. So now I can go and write. Of course, now the quality of what I'm writing in my conclusion is going to be much better than what I did earlier. Again, the reason is because I read my results and discussions. So the second group of factors affecting student attention were related to the students. The most two important factors